Thanks, Sarah. That's fab. Great to see so many of you on tonight's webinar. It's always one of those things when Sarah and I are kind of looking at our programme and working out what do we want to kind of try and talk about, what will members be interested in. We thought we would pick this topic because obviously it's also clear cut, isn't it? And things don't change at the last minute ever, and derail all your nice plans. But it's hugely, hugely important. And I think all of us thought we might have a bit more certainty from the weekend's government announcements, and I think we've probably got a bit less than we maybe were hoping for. But there's a lot of information has come out of government, and I guess that's really at the heart of what the Chamber's been involved in for the last 8 weeks, or however many weeks it has been since we've all been working remotely or working from home. We've been looking at government guidance and trying to make sure that we relay as much of that as possible straight to businesses, so that you've got that as quickly as you possibly need to get your hands on it. So this afternoon, for example, we've been updating our COVID hub with the news that the job retention scheme was extended, and our COVID hub's got lots of guidance and links to Scottish Government and to the UK Government, to places like HMRC. You know, if you haven't yet, and I'm sure you have, if you're entitled to, you know, things like get a pause on your HMRC VAT payments or your PAYE payments, and you don't yet know where the phone number is to get on to HMRC and make sure that they know that that's what you've decided to do, then all of that information's in our COVID hub. We've been doing a lot of support in businesses and just answering lots of questions and doing a lot of signposting, and connecting with the local authorities and national government just to give them some feedback on how quickly the support is getting to people. I mean, I guess the good news probably for a lot of people is that that support is really getting through to people really quickly. So the bounce back loans are hitting bank accounts really quickly. The grants are all being, you know, well handled by local authorities, and those that qualify for them and it's quite straightforward, then that money is getting to people really quickly. I think what we're now seeing is people that fall through the cracks, that thought they might be eligible aren't eligible, or have had you know, a need to provide more information, and we've been getting asked a lot to support with that. We have also got a coronavirus live tracker out at the moment. So with the Scottish Chamber Network, we're working to get a sense of how businesses are feeling, and a lot of the first 3 phases of that was trying to work out what were the crisis moments, and now what we're doing is looking forward and looking at the business recovery. So we'll ping out a link to that to you all. I would appreciate if you would just take 5 minutes to fill in that survey, so that government know what issues you feel you're going to experience when you're trying to get yourself back on your feet and get back out there if you've not been continuing to partially trade during this time. So yeah, we've been doing lots, and we've been looking at our webinar programme. So apologies if you're an old hand at the webinars, you know what I'm talking about, but our programme really starts on a Tuesday afternoon, and we do a networking session with members, coffee and cake. So you've got to bring your own coffee and your own cake, but it's a good chance for members just to talk to each other about the issues that they're facing. And on a Tuesday evening, it's our Guide to series, and these have been really good. These have been really informative and have really helped narrow down some specifics per topic. And on a Wednesday, our webinar focuses on supporting people. So we've done things like mental health and wellbeing, we've looked at motivation, we've looked at managing people remotely, and tomorrow is all about how do you keep your kind of physical health at the top of what you should be doing. So have been focusing a lot on how do you manage the mental side of things, but keeping physically active. If you don't have a service like Alexander Community Trust, and you're not recording videos while you're all dancing in the workshop, then you might have to think about other ways to keep yourself motivated and fit during the day. So that's tomorrow's session. And then on a Thursday, we do business support. So it's all about what does your business need to survive and thrive through all of this. So there's always lots going on. But I think that's a bit of a snapshot for me. I'm really looking forward to this evening's session. I know that there's going to be I'm just setting you up, loads of awkward questions for our speakers, and maybe lots of, well, we'll get back to you on that, but that's okay. We don't have all the answers, but hopefully we can just bring you some experiences from local people that have a handle on how some of this impacts them and how it might impact you. So I'm going to hand over first of all to Kara, and then she's going to hand over to John, and then, you know, we'll hand over to Mark. So Kara, over to you. Once I can hear you, I will mute and get out of the way.
Can you hear me?
Sure can.
Hello everyone. If you just bear with me a second, I will get our slides up. So we're going to do a brief introduction to us, because a lot of you probably not know who we are, and some of the work that we've been doing throughout coronavirus. And then John will really go into the depth around some of the risk assessment and whatnot. So I'll let John give a brief introduction to where we are. John?
Hi, can everyone hear us? Yep, good. Hi, I'm John Alexander. We've created Alexander's Community Development. It's been a few years in my mind, this project. I've been working on it, and it's great to see it now finally up and running. The COVID kind of stopped with a little bit in our tracks, and we've just adapted in to help the third sector at the moment. But we're a 3-tier training facility. We're going to be delivering training in the offshore industry, the renewables, and the building trade that I'm heavily involved in. We'll be looking to develop the young workforce and develop the workforce, but we're also community at heart, and we'll be carrying out quite a vast amount of community projects at discounted costs for them. These type of things. We're working in partnerships with quite a few local companies, and we're not there to oversee or say our way is correct. We're there to help and work together with a lot of companies out there.
So basically, as John's touched on, we're a 3-tiered system. Our main focus prior to lockdown was the training centre, which we're developing a new site, one-stop shop for various different sectors in the city, and we've still been able to do some of that, but that's obviously via webinars. And we're developing our 2nd tier, which is a school transition to trade programme, which again has been on stop during lockdown too, but it's given us a bit of time to sort of work on the background. And the last one that maybe some of you have seen on social media is the community work that we do. So alongside the discounted rates and whatnot, we do a lot of operations and logistical support for the third sector, which is something that's drastically missing across the board. And we've managed to support that through the work with the food banks. So, as I'll leave with John now, as I mentioned, we've been open since day one, and we've had to put some really strict measures in place to ensure that we can do this, because not only is it our workforce, we're catering a facility for roughly 2,500 bags of food every single week for over 10 weeks. Now that's a lot of hungry tummies that we are touching their food before it goes to them. So we need to be really quite aware of what we're doing and how we manage that. So I'll pass over to John.
I think it's been testing times for everyone at the COVID. What we've adapted with, it's been great to see, and I think a lot of if there is anything good that the COVID, the community spirit that it has brought together is great. We've got a 3-pronged. Oops. That's me. Could you hear us? Sorry. Yeah. We've got a 3-pronged kind of approach to starting back up. Obviously, the risk assessment's right at the top of what we'll be doing for Alexander's, the decorating side of it. What we've got to really remember is all our staff have been off for 7 to 8 weeks now. A lot of anxiety getting shown among staff. Just a lot of concerns. There's a lot of maybe mental health issues. It's hard times for the staff. So I think when we're starting back up, we're going to have a slow approach to it. It'll not be an 8-hour day. In format, you're only looking at maybe 6 hours. There's going to be a lot of things put into place that needs to kind of slow down. We're cost for getting material, these type of things. It's going to be a different world, eh? The risk assessment is going to have to show all these type of things in it. I think there's a big concern regarding the PPE, but the PPE that's going to be required will be on the risk assessment. That's where I think there's a lot of these people for gloves, which are not required in some incidents. I think we're seeing numerous people wearing the gloves, but we've got to remember surgical gloves are more for like one touch, then they're binned. So have we got another slide to flick on, Kara?
Going now. Yep.
This is like what we'll be putting in the risk assessment. It's all going to be anew. We're going to isolate, reduce, eliminate the behaviours of staff, the PPE that we're going to need moving forward. For Alexander's decorators, we've ordered like nose and P3 face masks. We've got basically face coverings for them, just for travelling in vehicles. These are something that we've implemented. We've also implemented like sanitisers in the vehicles for hands, but also for the vehicle. And we've got all this in our risk assessments that basically in and out sanitising the hands. When we're leaving the vehicle, we'll be sanitising the vehicle. We'll flick again.
Yeah.
I think when we're starting back up, a lot of where I've been away from were places of work for a long time. So there's a lot of risks in this itself. We've got our water supplies. You've got bacteria, Legionella that could be in there. So before the staff get there, we've got to click things into place, getting it up and running, making sure we're ready. And I think it's taking a slow approach on staff. At Alexander Decorators, we're going to phase the staff in maybe 2 or 3 at a time, going on the weeks, and just covering everything that we've got on our risk assessments. And I think it's making staff reassurance that we're working together, speaking to them at all times, keeping them in place. The controlled measures for COVID, I think everybody's watching the news and we're seeing, I think the local government sometimes doesn't seem to know what's kind of going on with that. But I'm assuring that all as employers, the risk assessment that we'll put in place, that's what my staff will be following. You would have to follow to that, What have we got there? Examples? Oh, we've got, sorry, because I think what you've got to remember as well, what we're looking in our risk assessment is there'll be a lot of lone working. So on some of our jobs, we'll not be doing 2 men to a room because the social distancing measures is going to be very hard to keep for us on these type of things. So on the lone working, it brings risks itself. We're going to keep communicating with the staff. We're mobile phones, we've all carrying them now, so we'll be daily up checks, maybe hourly, every 2 or 3 hours. The supervisor will be checking on staff just to make sure that everything's okay. They're following procedures. What we've got to remember is with the 2 metre distancing, it's some staff when they come back in will find it hard to keep this, and our minds kind of forget, and we start trying to get close to each other, which is a human thing that these things are going to happen. But we just need to try and reassure staff, maybe toolbox talks every morning, and being a slow approach to staff. And I'm a non-for-profit company. Alexander Decorators has been carrying out numerous projects. I think as a boss, coming back to things, it's going to be very, very slow. And we've got to think about our staff, We're also with the community side. We're developing just now. We're waiting on this getting passed by IOSH in City and Guilds. We're going to be doing a sanitizer. But the sanitizers, there's a lot of people jumping onto this at the moment, flogging, these type of things, and looking to charge expensive rates for that. Our sanitising, we're looking to employ people and train them. We've got a chap who works with me. He's got 15 years of spraying. So we're going to be spraying sanitizers through a Graco gun with bar pressure, which is far superior to the flogging. But these are other things. We've also got a further couple of hours webinar ourselves on Thursday that we're going quite in depth with it. One of my colleagues, Paul Donaldson, he's going to do a 2-hour basically transitioning onto that. And I hope some of that helps. But any questions, I'm here to answer if that's any good. Mark, are you?
Are you wanting to take questions first for John, or do you want me to proceed first of all?
If you just get going, Mark, we'll do questions at the end for everybody.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Hi everybody, good evening. I'm Mark Husband. I'm the Europe, Middle East and Africa Safety, Health and Environment Lead for Dover Fueling Solutions. We used to be Talkheim, it was maybe a more familiar name to people, and we were acquired by Dover Corporation, who are a large Chicago-based American corporation in 2015, and they subsequently acquired also one of our rival companies, Solutions. We're based out at West Buckero Industrial Estate, and with the unfortunate closure of Michelin, I think we will then become, I think, the largest company in Dundee for a number of staff on site. So we make a range of fuel dispensers, petrol pumps, point of sale equipment, banknote acceptors, payment systems on the site in Dundee, and throughout the rest of the company we make a whole range of equipment for fueling stations and underground monitoring of fuel supplies. So our main customers are major oil companies and anybody that owns a petrol filling station. So we do a lot of work with people like Shell and BP and Total, and that kind of has influenced and driven our standards of safety in our business for many years. So when COVID-19 came along, we thought we were rather well prepared, but yeah, we had to learn an awful lot on the hoof as we went. Being a business that was supplying into the fuel industry and the transport industry, we came under the Scottish Government's description of an essential business. So we scaled back production for a few days. Our supply of parts and components to the aftermarket side of the business, to the company's servicing fuel stations and keeping them up, that kept going, but our main production scaled back for around a week while we got to grips with what social distancing was. Yeah, it's a bit of a beast, but we tracked our progress as we went through this journey, and what I'm going to share tonight is a few photos of our journey and try and explain what it was we've done to try and make our site up at West Buckero social distancing safe, and some of the pitfalls that we found, and some of the things that we're away to implement as well. Off the back of this call, I'll be happy to engage with anybody who wanted to run through any of these in a little bit more depth or have a one-to-one. We also have our own printing facility in the Dundee Manufacturing Centre, so we may have the ability to print some floor stickers and that kind of thing for any companies who may be needing them. So we can have that conversation offline as well, but we'd be happy to help however we could. So I'm going to share my my screen. You should see a whole 3 folders, I think you should see. I'm going to click into them and see a whole bunch of photographs. Is that what can be seen at the moment?
Yeah, that's what we're seeing, Mark.
Excellent. Okay, so what we did was we took a view that we needed to set the tone from the minute we get people getting out of their cars at the facility. So we started off by making a rule in the car park that you had to leave a space between every 2 spaces. This allowed for extra social distancing when you were getting out of your car and setting the right tone for staff when they were leaving their vehicle. We had to deploy parking marshals in the first few days for this to set in. The only one error we made with this poster was we have a reverse parking rule on site, and as you can see, we made the poster looking like you had to park front ways in. So we soon had our staff telling us that was a mistake, but this went down really well. It gave the right tone. If you did have a big enough parking area, I would advise it. We will have to, as we ramp up, probably have to review that at some point in time. But at the beginning, it really gave us a bit of a head start at setting the correct tone. Many of our staff had been off site for a number of days, and when they came back, we wanted it to feel different for them. We wanted it to feel like there was new rules in place, and we wanted them to feel like their social distancing was being looked after. At the staff entrance to the facility, we started off by setting out cones, setting the 2 meters on the way into the plant. We implemented that same rule in the walkways coming up, and even the bike shelter as well, where we made it 1 person only at one time. On the first few days of coming back, we had quite a long queue of people queuing to get in. So what we ended up doing was we've staggered start and finish times, and staggered break times, and staggered times between the cells and groups of people so that you have the minimum number of people coming in at any one point in time. What we also realised fairly quickly in our planning phase before we got people back was that we didn't have a lot of room within the facility in terms of your walkways and your aisles. Some of them were just over 2 meters, some of them were almost 4 meters, some of them were less than 1.5 meters. So we soon realised we would have to implement a one-way system on the site. So from the minute you walk into the site to where you go to your workstation to then where you make your way around the site, there's a one-way system in place. And what that meant was behind these blue doors is our clocking in area, and we had to make this only a clock in, not a clock out. So the way that we can control clock out was by our supervisors going onto their electronic Chronos system and putting people out. That meant we could divert them out a different door and they weren't coming out the staff entrance where you might have people coming in. And that seems to be working very well. We set out a new plan of the site. This is a new one-way system that I talked about a second ago, and we mapped it out on a large board outside the site, giving people a chance to digest it a little bit before they went in. We also developed 4 house rules. That social distancing was in place. You had to respect 2 meters, avoiding touching your face because that's a transfer point. So it doesn't matter if you wear gloves or you don't wear gloves, it's the transfer to your mouth, nose or eyes that is the risk point. Enforcing hand washing. So there's an enforced hand wash when they first go in the morning. There's a hand wash before the start of any break, when you come back from any break, and before you leave the building. And we've had to supplement the existing hand washing facilities with portable sinks, which you can buy. You don't need to plumb them in. You can plug them into a wall socket and it heats up a tank of water. And you have to replenish that water maybe a couple of times a day. We can do that via a watering can or a separate water tank. And those have given us the extra hand washing capabilities we need to prevent long queues of people waiting for sinks. Disinfecting your work area. So we've got a sanitization and 5S regime for either common tools or at the beginning or end of every shift. The 5th house rule was respecting the one-way system. That was sacrosanct to this working. We didn't want situations where people were coming against each other, brushing past, getting into people's 2 meter space. And these house rules and the one-way system are all part of an induction system that everybody goes through now. Once you've gone through your induction system, you get a badge, and your badge says that you are socially distant, switched on. And that's a checkpoint for everybody that we have now. If we come across people unintentionally maybe breaking the rules, we say, have you had your induction? See your sticker on your name badge. If they don't have it and haven't had their induction, we can redo that for them and re-educate them. So this is printed up on a large 2.3 meter board, and we have another couple of these around the facility so that people have an aid memoir for when they're coming in. But we're setting a tone, telling them that the situation had changed, and hopefully giving them an opportunity to work out how they could get to their workstation and how they could get back. What it certainly does do when you put a one-way system in is you definitely increase your number of steps that you're taking a day. So our people involved in our Healthy Working Lives team are really happy with this, because people's steps are up and people are being more active in the workplace. So an unintentional benefit of the one-way system. We realised that the PPE machines that we normally use would be high touch areas that we maybe wouldn't control. So we have regularly vending machines for PPE, and you use your employee card or a number to then retrieve the PPE you need. So what we did was we put them on trolleys, the standard PPE on trolleys at the clock-in machines. So these are the 2 clock-in machines we put out of action. We used 2 on the opposite wall, and these trolleys had the normal PPE that the guys would take for a day's work. It's not allowed in window clocking in. They could collect the PPE and then they could go on from there. We also issued at the same time travel kits. The masks were added into these travel kits after the guidance around face coverings from the Scottish Government. So within the travel kit, you had a hand sanitizer, you had travel safety information, and you now have a pack of masks in there as well in a handy paper bag. And these are for anybody travelling on public transport. We also put them at the front door for those people, and you can get a top up of those masks should they need to, if they're travelling on the bus. And this is the way out. Again, I just covered that at this point in time. So that this was the fire exit we converted into a way out. We disabled the sensor from the fire system, and that allowed people to leave and go straight back into the car park without needing to contravene the one-way system. We also closed off our locker area. Our locker area is right when you go into the entrance. We realised that was a clog point, that was a bottleneck. So we allowed people a one trip to get their stuff out with their locker. They could take it back to the car, they could put it in their rucksack, and from then on the lockers were out of use. And a lot of people wanted to anyway, but we encouraged a lot of people to use their vehicles a lot more to store things or to bring it with them and store it at home when they're not using it. Let's skip on to shop floor. So within our shop floor, we've got a huge floor space. It's 14,000 square meters of space that we have in there. So we had to come up with a system of how we attack this. So we came up with we almost became urban planners. We planned out every area of the factory and the flow of people, the flow of materials, and where you might have pinch points and clash points, and we came up with an entire sticker system. So these are some examples of what we've done. So we marked out 2 meters throughout the entire walkway of the factory. We've put flows, so the arrows there indicating the flow that you can go. We have passing places. So in areas where you have multiple personnel, you've got passing places dedicated now so people can go and get out the way of others that are coming along a priority route. And this is the entire length of one of our production cells. So you can see it took a fair amount of stickers and a lot of measuring to get this correct. But once you do it, it gives you a visual indicator of the person in front of you, very similar to chevrons on the motorway. You know that if somebody's in front of you, they have to be at the next sticker for you to be coming past the sticker behind. And that allowed us to guarantee the 2 meters throughout the walkway area. You can't see too well in this photograph. We'd started it at this point. We've also put boards all the way down the side of this production line now to make sure that the workers on the production line are distanced from the people on the walkway. This production line wasn't open fully at this point in time, hence why it wasn't boarded up. But we've had to source a lot of different boards to put through the production lines, because those are areas where you can do nothing really about the space other than to put permeable solutions. When we have areas where we move dispensers to the right here and there's people who come from the left, we've got barrier systems. So they very much like a kind of railway crossing, we pull the barrier system across, move the equipment, and come back to move the barrier, and if the barrier's up, the people wait at the space stickers before you can move on. That's it in place. When in our production cells, we soon realised that we were very closely packed together. So what we've actually done is combine production cells. So normally each of these squares is one production cell. So we've combined the 2 production areas into one cell and allowed ourselves a space in between. These spaces that are marked out with an X in the barrier tape are for pushing on product. So some of our ex-army guys were calling them DMZ, demilitarized zones, easy for me to say, where you can just drop things into and move on, and that became our term for them. So, you know, you move your equipment in, and somebody else can then take that further down the line. There was a lot of stickers put down here because these are passing places. We realised that we have at times a need to move materials up the same flow line that people would come down. And we mulled a few different ways of doing this. We looked at, you know, making every 5 minutes, every half hour for material flow only. We looked at replenishing stock in the evening only. And, well, the only thing that would really work for the way that we manufacture at the end of the day was having passing places, so people can then move into these passing places and allow the material flow as a priority to come past them. So we borrowed areas from our paint shop, from our Tantifuro areas, and marked them off in huge orange stickers with passing places, and then marked them out at 2 meter spaces within so that people would know where to stand. Same for material drops. So when we were having pallets coming to areas where you may have a breach of the 2 meter rules, we borrowed areas to mark out pallet dropping areas, so materials can be dropped and go without the person needing to come into an area, which might then break the 2 metre rule. Anybody visiting that area, so that didn't have materials, because of the congested nature of the area, they had to stop and wait here, and then the person within the area would be responsible for coming and speaking to them, rather than that person just going ahead into the area. So skip over a couple of slides. We had photos. Sorry, we had a couple of areas where we had two-way flow, and we'd have a stop sign either side, and it's just to warn people that you might have somebody coming the opposite direction, and you really need the behaviour to take over then. One of the things that we really noticed is that people will start to, after a couple of days of being on site, and your senses are really, heightened for the first few days. You're really aware you're in a new set of rules. After a few days, I call it muscle memory. Muscle memory takes over. People start naturally drawing back a bit closer. John mentioned it earlier, and we've really seen that as our biggest risk area. People forgive themselves. Complacency a little bit sets in. Risk normalization is a common term for it, where they don't really see anything happening adversely, so it becomes okay to do this. So we've had to turn some of our teams of EHS people and supervisors into almost parking wardens or policemen to really make sure they're focusing on making sure people maintain that 2 meters distance. None of it is done maliciously. It is natural human behavior, but it's the one thing that if you can't maintain, your business would be at risk of getting closed down. And we saw in the guidance yesterday released by Boris Johnson, primarily for England, of course, at the moment, the inspections by the Health and Safety Executive are going to increase when businesses start opening. So we really see this as a risk point. If we can't get the behaviour piece right, then it doesn't matter how good the system is. So deploying these hall monitor, policemen, parking warden style people has really helped us. It's not the way we do safety regularly. We're much more carrot than stick, and we've learned over time that having a kind of safety officer approach rather than a mentor and coach isn't necessarily a great long-term thing, but as a short to medium-term action, it was a necessity for us to put these people into place, just to keep reminding people about keeping their distance, spacing out, not naturally drawing together, not needing to go into a pod to have a conversation with somebody. These kind of things that we naturally do on a day-to-day. We've put physical barriers up when you couldn't separate people by distance alone. And we've also identified any time that we have shared equipment with these shared equipment stickers. These go on tools, photocopiers, computers, screens. We have them all through our manufacturing centre. And next to every shared equipment sticker is a couple of these Wonder Wipes. So we bulk bought a whole load of Wonder Wipes, which have antibacterial properties in them as well. So they're fine to wipe down tools and equipment and workstations. And we changed our 5S regime to make sure that after people use their tool, they wipe it down and they bin the wipe appropriately. And that goes for, like I say, every single bit of shared equipment has that. Even within the small areas of our offices that are open for use at the moment, there's still those same sticker and the same process in place. A lot of the cells were too small to allow anything more than one operator, so we had to mark them up suitably. So whenever this sign is here, nobody's allowed past the hazard tape, so it's a one operator only cell. Again, some examples of the clash points and areas that we had to fence off as such because there wasn't enough space in there for more than one person. Another example of a zone that you can transit equipment to. So the person at the site's only allowed up to the red stop sign, and the equipment's then brought forwards. In some of our areas where we have isopar chemical, we had to put a different type of sticker down there. So this is a lot more resistant to chemical properties. There isn't a lot of drips, but it tends to get on the base of the operator's boots, and that really picks up a lot of the stickers. So we had to put a different type of marking down there for the 2 meter spacing. This was a temporary measure we came up with. They were christened sneeze bags. These are just dispenser packaging bags. Because of the amount of orders going into companies for plexiglass and that sort of thing, the lead time went up quite a bit. So as an interim solution, we put up a lot of these sneeze bags to give a barrier between people facing each other. And these are going to be replaced with plexiglass as it comes in, or other solid barriers. And that was another example of just our production line and the compressing of cells, build cells. Normally in this line here, this is our Tocam Quantium range. We would normally have 18 cells, and we took that down to 7 cells and an area at the end. And these, as I explained earlier, are transit areas where the dispenser can be passed down, and the next person then takes that on and builds. What that allowed us to do is cross-train a lot of people as well, and improve our skills passport for our operators. So we've got a lot of multi-skilled people now within the business. Training has been a little bit tricky, needing to train by 2 meters, but we believe we managed to do it fairly successfully, using sometimes videos, so videoing of a task and playing that video back, and others have been able to be trained at a distance of 2 meters or more. Areas that we couldn't open up have been put out of action using the red and white barrier tape. Very simple, but very visual and very effective. Entry and exit for material flow as well and restocking was something that could have potentially tripped us up. But to replan restocking routes and replenishment routes, and even for nuts and bolts and empty trolleys and all these kind of things that you don't think about until you see happening. We had to plan every single thing that happened in every single cell, and it took a lot of work to be able to allow us release slowly back up to higher levels of production. This is an example of over-stickering. You can get carried away, and this gives too much information. You end up taking in none. We end up taking up most of these stickers and going back to the drawing board on this. But this was due to the people in that area having a higher level of anxiety over the virus. Not enough to stop them coming back into work, but they didn't want anybody coming into their area. So they ended with an over-stickering effect here. And so just beware of that. It was certainly a pitfall. That links into a little bit more of the mental health side of things, and John mentioned it earlier. Myself and there's another around 12 people were trained as mental health first aiders a couple of years ago. And we've really noticed an uptake in the number of people that are coming for a chat or phoning us up who maybe aren't in work. The mental health side of things is really starting to become obvious that it's growing during the crisis, particularly for those who are maybe working from home for the first time and are really dealing with stresses and anxieties that they've never come across before, as well as those who have been off work and are coming back into work again and scared of the virus. And part of that was to do with our media, and part of that was to do with our government's message, and part of that was to do with the way that you feel when you're isolated and you're just reading negative news all the time. So we've really noticed an uptake in how our mental health first aiders have been deployed and used, to the stage that we're now creating a portal for people to go on to access mental health support. And one of the other parts of our parent company had down in Skelmersdale in Lancashire, been working with the local mental health foundation and have got access to a range of books by Liggy Webb relating to things like anxiety, mental health. I'll just show an example of one of these just now. So there's burnout is one of them, mental health is one of the other ones, and there's a whole bunch of titles that we're putting onto the portal. And we also do a daily update to everybody, and a lot of the time the tips are focused around mental health and mental well-being, particularly around things like helping people deal with parenting at home, working from home, people that are furloughed. We really have noticed an uptake, so that's definitely a risk point. One of the other things I'm going to mention is fever screening. So we're aware that this is something that isn't required by any government bodies at the moment, but it is growing in popularity. If I recall correctly, there was only 18% of original cases of COVID-19 had a first symptom of fever, but it's still a primary indicator that you may be unwell and may have COVID-19. So we invested in this CCTV style thermal screening system, and it can scan multiple people at a time. It could be, I think it's 200 people at one time it can do as a maximum, and it recognises a human face and it recognises the temperature. What it doesn't do is facial recognition. So we had no interest in this, but it often gets confused in some of the messages you read online or in the news. This only knows it's a human face. It doesn't know that that is the face of, say, Mark Husband. And it would identify that face with the temperature of the skin, and it would send those two images to a set group of people. It's actually 2 HR people and 2 EHS people. And those people would get that email in a dedicated inbox, and they can go and discreetly remove that person on site and target to get them off within 15 minutes of the trigger going. That email is then automatically deleted, and the image on the system is automatically deleted. Even by doing that, I would warn that you will get into some pretty interesting conversations with legal advisors around GDPR. So our system is not at the moment turned on. We are still in the process of understanding the GDPR implications of using this kind of technology. So although it sounds great and it is a fantastic system and gives us a lot of benefit, you do have to do a few more often tick box exercises and procedures and policies to allow you to satisfy GDPR. One of the things we had to do as well was put together a highway code booklet because of all the stickers that we put in place, and that ran through all our stickers, what they meant, and allowed people to have an aide-memoire for what these were. This catalogue then also was used internally within Dover corporate with all their operating companies to order stickers from ourselves. And we've become a printing house for some of the other facilities, which is why I said at the beginning we'd be happy to look at supporting the same for anybody on this call. One last thing, bathrooms. We soon worked out bathrooms are very hard to have a system where you can have people in and adhere to social distancing. This is an example of us having to close off some of the urinal areas and control the number of people that we had in the bathroom by having 2 people in at only one time. And we've put into place now a visual system on the floor showing if there's people in or not. And if the cone's moved over, that means that people wait, and then the person comes out, and it's a way of kind of controlling it a little bit better. But the bathrooms were a real pinch point for us, as were hand washing facilities. What I'll just do as a final few photographs is that was the hand washing facilities that I talked about earlier. We realised that we couldn't have people standing next to each other without erecting any sort of screens. We put out of action some of the taps and allowed people to have at the start and the end of the trough, and then use the appropriate hand dryer behind them. And that's what we also use for our enforced hand washing, which is another good idea for limiting the number of people coming off the shop floor at any one point in time. Last point was just around the canteen facilities. Normally you can fit about 150 people into this canteen. The canteen itself was closed down with the government regulations stipulating you couldn't sell food to be eaten on site. So we changed the whole area into a breakout area, allowing 2 meters distant between people sitting at tables and the tables themselves, and putting the wonder wipes at every one of those seats. We actually, I'll just get back, we ate it into some of our conference rooms as well. We made them into additional breakout space. So we have room for about 48 people at any one point in time to be on their breaks, which is quite a large number, but we can then stagger the breaks appropriately to make sure that we don't have excessive numbers in these at any one point in time. The microwaves we've kept on as shared equipment with wonder wipes as well, and because every break is supervised, we can put a regime in there. People wipe out, wipe their microwave, use their microwave to heat their food, and then wipe it down again before eating it. We put all our coffee machines and water machines out of use, apart from one which is in the conference, which is in the canteen just here. And again, that's supervised use. And most of the people were very comfortable with bringing in their own flask and their own water as well. We felt we were just too much of a high touch area to allow it to be used in the first stages of ramping back up again. And that's our journey to date. So I'd be happy to take any questions just now at the moment, if there was any around what we've done and any pitfalls.
Thanks very much, Mark. I think the two of you have been very, very thorough, because there aren't many questions in the chat, but I do have one that was submitted earlier, and it's around is the onus on the employer or the employee to be providing themselves with the likes of face masks, hand sanitizers and tissues, etc., while they're at their desk. I think this is more of a kind of office environment that they come from. And obviously they're looking at, how they're going to be reopening their office, what measures they need to put in place. But for the employee, is the onus on the employer or the employee to come in with this equipment? Oh, John, I think you're still muted.
It would be on the employer. The employers, the risk assessment will state what the employer's got in. And it would be up to it depends if it's the same branded, whatever we're using, but it's definitely the employer's, it lies in that. And the risk assessment should be read to staff. We should be talking through it with staff and just trying to ease some of the anxiety that's out there at the moment. I think when we're going in any place, especially if it's in a shop or a supermarket, you could see the tension in people, and even just the staff on the supermarket. They're only humans as well. They're under severe pressure because they've got families to try and to keep the income coming into their house, and it's the employer.
I think as well, we work at quite a significantly smaller scale than Dover, and I think for us it's essential that all staff that are in the building have access to more than adequate PPE. So obviously John's touched on the risk assessments that have been carried out in place, but we always have that and then some. That just puts a wee bit of comfort back into the employees, and whoever's coming in the door. We're asking them to come into work in a really quite a dangerous time, so whatever you can do to give them a bit of confidence, and obviously that may be sort of costings and whatnot, not money's tight, but at the same time it's a case of weighing up it is people's health at the end of the day. And the long run, a bit of money spent on PPE just to keep your operations going, certainly for us has been well worth it. I think there's another question about the access to COVID testing. Certainly with Alexander Community Development, we are classed as the same as Dover as essential workers with the food bank stuff we're doing, so we have the opportunity to have access. However, the guidelines show that there's no point in getting tested until you're showing symptoms, so we've taken the approach that until that's the case, those tests are best placed with those.
What about yourselves then, Mark? So there was just a quick question from Alison, just saying have your people had access to the COVID testing? But I guess it's possibly the same as what Kara's just said there. Unless there's actually symptoms, then it's not been the case.
Yeah, it's absolutely the same as what Kara just said. There's only a very small handful of our employees been tested, but normally those have been partners of very much frontline workers, those in the police and ambulance service. So we haven't pushed for that and asked for it, and we haven't been asked as a company to provide that either. So yeah, very much the same. And on the PPE point, we took a little bit of a different stance. We consulted with the staff and the unions, and we took the government's advice on board that we don't enforce or request people to wear any kind of face coverings or anything like that where their job doesn't require it. It was felt by our staff, I think volume of people on site probably had an influence on it as well, that issuing out face coverings gave people a worry. They thought, well, you can't then meet the social distancing requirement. So we very much pushed the message that we believe in social distancing, therefore we don't need to provide you with face coverings and face masks, and also that protects the supply going to the frontline workers. We did, in preparation, buy a large bulk supply of face coverings a couple of months before it really became an issue in the UK, but we haven't issued those out. The only place we've issued them is for people coming in on public transport, when we've issued face masks if they wanted, just to give them a level of comfort and support. So to answer the question about office staff, It's not something you should require. So you shouldn't require PPE unless you can't meet the social distancing requirements, and that requirement can't be countered by something like a barrier or something permeable between people. PPE should be certainly a last resort, and government urging you to be very conscious about taking demand away from the front line. So I would say last resort, and only if you can't do anything else. Okay.
Sorry, Mike. I'm not sure how you've managed to, but I think you've managed to start sharing your screen. So there should be. There should, if you kind of wiggle your mouse over, there should be like a little box with a cross over it that stops you from sharing your screen. Whatever screen you're, so it's your, that's it.
Okay, Manny's question there around the team morale. Certainly for us, some of may seen videos and whatnot, our team morale is actually up. Interestingly, our team morale is probably the best it's been. Obviously, we're not at full capacity, and we work in the same building as Alexander Decorators, but for us, what this has done is really pull us together and think, actually, do you know what, we've got a really tough time on our hands, but let's make the best of a bad situation here. So yeah, our team morale definitely is there. It's good.
I'd agree with you on that, Kara. Actually, I think it answers maybe two questions. What we to say that productivity has certainly been higher than it would normally because people aren't taking so many breaks, can't really have the chance of conversation with their friends. Funnily enough, don't need as many toilet breaks as well. It's odd when you make the distance to the bathroom longer, right? But no, I'd say morale on the whole is definitely up. A lot of the feedback we've had when people come back in is that, you know, coming back in here feels a lot safer than going to Tesco's or Asda or Aldi or any of the shops that they would have regularly gone to. So there's a comfort factor that we didn't anticipate to have, and you know that, and people that have also been away from the business for a number of weeks who are then returning are kind of birds released. It's quite certainly this week a much more positive place to be in than we anticipated to be, and productivity is very good for the situation we're in and for the restrictions we've put in place, and much higher than where we thought we would be. So yeah.
Perfect. Steve, I know you've got Steve Lowe, actually, just in case there's a few more Steves on the call. Steve, I know that you've got a couple of questions for Mark, and perhaps ones for Kara and John to answer as well. So if you want to unmute yourself, you'll be able to obviously come in and ask them yourself.
Hear me okay?
Yeah.
Yeah, hear you.
That's great. Yeah, Mark, trying to remember what I wrote there now. Your offices, I didn't see any photographs of your offices.
Yeah.
And I'm just wondering if you used, you know, the social distancing barriers in the office itself, you know, that you were talking about on the shop floor. Do you use them?
It's a good question. So not the only office staff we have in are the kind of 6-7 of us that have been involved in the COVID crisis response to this. The 115 others are working from home almost permanently at the moment, which is in line with, again, the government advice. We are in the middle of a project that's now we've kind of looked at the production side, got the production side back up and running, about what we would do for the office area, because it's a completely different beast. And rather than going into barriers and this kind of thing, we are thinking more along the lines of if we do return people any point this year and any great extent, then it would have to be on a very small scale, probably no more than 15% of who we would normally have in that office space to guarantee us the right amount of social distance between them. So for us, it's more looking at numbers that come back rather than putting physical barriers up. And at the moment, we have 6-7 of us spaced out over quite a large area of the office, and that's why you don't see many photos.
There's a company out there called Shoreline. They can help you.
Okay.
That's me, by the way.
Any help is welcome for sure. And
listen, I really appreciate just what I've seen there, and this is challenging everybody, really. So yeah, what you're doing has been great, and I hope you keep it up. And yeah, I wish you all the best, mate. It's challenging times.
be sure to reach out to you if we're looking for some barriers, Steve. That'd be great.
No problem. I've got colleagues in London, and we're supplying a lot of the major banks and everything at the moment, so business is going good.
That's
Not
fantastic.
that to be in this kind of business, nobody wants to be in this situation, but if you could provide things that keep people safe and reduce the risk of people getting this bloody virus, then it's got to be a good thing.
100%.
Yeah, just to answer one of your other questions, staff coming back by age group. Obviously, those over 70 and in higher risk categories are not exempt as such. They're in a bracket that you have to consider very carefully about returning to work. So we don't have many over 70s work in our work, but we do have a couple. And at the moment, they're not back yet. But we haven't approached any other returns on age. It's been on skill set and the requirements for production so far.
Yeah, excuse me. I just took some notes while we were at this, and I was looking at not just the age, but say people with health problems, respiratory problems, asthma, COPD, diabetes, obesity, pregnant workers. They're all considered as in like higher risk.
Yeah.
And there was going to be my next question to, sorry, I've forgotten his name again, John, was when you're bringing your workforce back, John, you need to bring them all back at once. Can you stagger it? So you've got a bit of control and gives you time to educate and refine things and improve things as you move on, you know? That was, and that was going to be the same to you, Mark, as well. I was just looking at, okay, we want to bring these people back, stagger it out, you know, and just do the best you can.
We've done it. We're doing well. We're in the process. It's going to be a phased return. We're doing, and that'll be 2 or 3 staff at a time. They'll be briefed on the risk assessment before coming into we're compounding that. The nature of the decorating, because we're on, so we've kind of got to wait because we're in people's houses, and we're going to be a slow start back on these type of things, because it's just the nature of our business.
Yeah.
And that.
It's difficult to control, especially with your painters and all these kind of workers, you know. It's just about discipline and education.
Keep it staff. Get, as you're saying, you're educating the staff, and because it's easy for them to forget the 2 metre, but the sticker situations are great to say we've actually got that on our floors as well. No, knowing that we're nowhere near that scale, but I think it's just a great example. Because when you come through the door and it catches your eye, then it kind of stops you on your track, then makes you aware of, then they start to look for the issues that are there.
Tesco's and Asda, the same.
Thanks very much.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you. Yeah, Mike, I know you're looking to share your experiences of getting your men back on site this week. So if you want to unmute yourself, you'll be able to come and share that with everybody.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
Yeah, hi, Mike Smith, WBS Keeler. We're obviously in the construction industry. You know, the majority of companies have obviously been furloughed, with most sites closed. We have had 2 or 3 sites that have remained open. We're working at Nine Wells Hospital and also at the new Baldovey Waste Treatment Plant, which has stayed open as well. We had our men furloughed for 7 weeks. We went back to the sites on Monday. Well, just answering the previous question, we brought our guys in last week and did a sort of training, a 1 hour sort of training seminar in the workshop, just with going through all the new risk assessments and all the new procedures that the contractors were putting in place on site. One thing, unlike yourself, Mark, at Dover, when you're working with different contractors, everybody's got their own interpretation of what they should be putting in place. One of them, you mentioned face masks. On the job at Baldovey, they've now said face masks will be compulsory for everybody, whereas at Nine Wells, they've taken the view that they didn't think it was compulsory. We obviously, our works have involved, we're involved sort of fitting fire doors, toilet cubicles, things like that are obviously all a 2-man operation. So we put procedures in place that obviously it's impossible to maintain a 2 metre distance, but with the masks on, the guys will work in close proximity for a maximum of 15 minutes. You will maybe get the door just pinned in position and then stand away. One guy can finish that off. One thing we have noticed on site, obviously the sites have got about a third of the number of usual men that would be there. They've introduced a 2-shift system rather than one, different starting times, staggered canteen times. And I think as much as it's going to be quite difficult, we've actually seen, are quite confident there's going to be quite a few benefits in that the site's not so packed, less damage to your product, there's less scissor lifts moving about, things like that. So, the next few weeks will be quite an eye-opener just to see how it goes. But the guys have approached it quite a positive manner so far.
I think that's totally the case. I think it's the right procedure, slowly. And the face masks were required. As I say, everybody's got FP3 face masks. Legally should be face fitted for the mask. So I think different sites, some sites to me go overkill on things, but I think what you're saying, Mike's correct. If you've got 2 men working together on the door, they should be wearing the FP3 masks, and they should be.
Sorry, John, we're only using FFP3 masks if they're doing, working with MDF, etc. If it's just standard operations, they're just wearing, the surgical mask, because we reckon we could go through 4 a day per man. So we've just bought 1,000 of them in the last week, sort of thing. So we will go through a lot of them. So I know that it's just the standard surgical masks for operations like that.
Mm-hmm. No, I think that's probably it's the PPE's a crazy trying to gain access to the PPE and bulk buying at the moment in time. Mark's obviously got a good supply there at Dover because all them staff, it's hard going. We do mask face fitting testing, and our supply chain is limited.
Yeah, we were very lucky in that respect. Our parent company had a couple of 100,000 in a Chicago warehouse that we were lucky enough to get tap into. But when we looked specifically at FFP2 and FFP3, not only was the pricing absolutely outrageous for them, it was about 3,000% increase, I think, if I remember correctly, at one point in time. The supply was non-existent, and if you could get them, you were even getting suppliers attempting to say, well, I'll send you them, and I'll give you a CE certificate, but I won't actually mark them up as CE. And you think, well, wait a minute, here we go. Challenging times.
Thanks very much, gents. Let me just there's a comment, Mike, there's a comment in there from Shona, if you want to go into the chat and have a wee read of that, just in agreement with that. So conscious of time, Alison, I know that you had one last question regarding kind of production levels and income, etc. If you want to come in and ask that question and then just round up, to be honest.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I suppose you touched on it a bit. I think when you were talking, Mark, about productions, as good as ever, or maybe. But how are you maintaining income and production when you haven't got so many people in? I'm guessing you haven't got so many people in at once. I'm thinking that other businesses may find that they can't, do as many shifts, or might have to have maybe half the people in. What does that do to your income?
So we're operating currently with around it's about 2/3 of our normal capacity on the site. Some of our workers are unable to come back to site, having been shielded, or living with others who are shielded. There's the working from home side of things as well. So we don't have a great number of people who can't come into site or are prohibited from coming in. So those that we have in, very good productivity. We have a small backlog of orders that have built up through the Europe, Middle East and Africa business. So we've got enough work to see us for the meantime. But I think like every other company, there's uncertainty about what the future of this looks like, right? Particularly for us, does the future of the energy market change? after this. So medium to long term, we all harbour some concerns about how the world will look at the end of this, but short to medium term, we're fairly confident we're in a good position, and we have the right amount of workforce to do that.
That's brilliant. And I think the other thing is we probably need to get you and your teams into Tesco to make everybody else pay attention to those floor signs. Because, you know, I've gone from road rage. I don't have road rage because hardly anybody on the road. It's now trolley rage in Tesco. But it's fine. I'm over it.
Coming from the environment, Alison, like what we've just seen, where we're very strictly enforcing it, and 2 meters is sacrosanct, and you know, if you come into somebody else's personal space, there's a convulsion to move out the way. When you then go to Aldi's or Tesco's, or somebody reaches over you to get an item, you get a high amount of anxiety and anger about that, right?
I think that one of the best advices I could say, just only for travelling around for the last few weeks, is do not go to Asda's or Tesco's on a Friday, because it seems to be a breeding place out there. That's the queues and none of it, but that's stay well clear.
Of course, if you develop a cough, nobody will come anywhere near you. All right, thank you so much. I think I'm conscious of time, so we'll kind of wrap it up, but that was brilliant. So really, really interesting. And this is one of these conversations that's just going to go on and on and on. So thanks so much to everybody that came and shared their expertise and that chipped in on the kind of the Q&A and just gave us a bit of an insight into what's going on. As more and more information comes out, you know, we'll keep sharing it. But anybody that's got any questions or wants connected with anybody that we had on this evening, then please just let us know. Massive thank you to Sarah for getting us organised as always. This session, the recording, will be up on our YouTube channel within 24 hours or so, so there'll be lots of people getting a chance to have a look at it. But if you're not doing anything tomorrow, then please come along to our session where we're going to be talking about how you can make sure you keep yourself physical and exercise from home without having to have all of that expensive kit. There is no getting away. You've got to get up and get exercising. So looking forward to that tomorrow. And then, you know, we've got a couple of other webinars this week. So Thursday is about export finance. So if export is your game and you're interested in how to make sure you've got access to the right kind of finance to make sure you're getting back or continuing to operate, then please come along to that one. There's also a British Chambers of Commerce webinar on Thursday, and that's Resilience in a Time of Crisis. So Dame Stephanie Shirley will be on that webinar, just talking about her own life and in business and entrepreneurship. So all of that's on our website. Please have a look at it. Thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your evening, and we'll catch up with you another time. Thanks very much, folks. Thanks.
Thanks. Stay safe.
Stay alert.